Hello, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and do problem number 32, which says, what is the y value of the solution to the matrix equation below? And gives you this expression here, or this equation. And basically what this means is, if you take the first column here, the first row, and multiply by this guy, by this column, you're going to get 3. So 3 times x, 2 times y, equals 3. And then the other one would be 2 times x is 2x. 1 times y, it would be 1y, equals 4. So basically this matrix is translated into a system of equations. So I'm going to show 2 ways to do it, to solve this. First one is we're using matrix. Basically you're going to press second matrix. You're going to highlight the word edit. So you press number 1 because you want to use the first matrix. And this matrix happens to be 2 rows by 2 columns. So we're going to write 2 by 2. And now we're going to enter the numbers 3, 2, 2, 1. Right, so we double checked if we did enter correctly, and we did. So now we're going to press second quit. I'm going to press second matrix and enter the second matrix, which will be 3, 4. So we're going to highlight the word edit, and we want to make sure to press number 2 because we already have a matrix A. We want a matrix B, and the matrix B is going to be 1 column by 2 rows. So 1 by 2. I'm sorry. It's going to be 2 rows by 1 column. Sorry, got those mixed up. Okay, so basically you have 1 column here with 2 rows, right? So 2 rows and 1 column, and the number is going to be 3 and 4. And now we're going to quit. Okay, now there's something you're going to have to remember for the test is this a to the inverse of 1, a to the negative 1, and b. Okay, basically when you punch this in the calculator is going to give you the result of this system of equations. So let's go ahead and try that. So first let's put second matrix. I want to call in matrix 1, matrix A, which is the first matrix, and we're going to use the negative 1 where it is right here. Okay, and then we're going to call the second matrix, we'll press number 2, and then we'll press enter, and the calculator gives us 5, negative 6. Now this would be the x value, right, and this would be the y value. Okay, let me make it darker here because it's kind of a little bit light. Alright, there we go. So this would be the x, this would be the y. And basically the problem here is asking for the y value, so my y value would be negative 6. Okay, now like I promised you, you could have done this with our matrix. Basically you have the system of equation, which is 3x plus 2y equals 3, and you also have 2x plus 1y equals 4. How can I solve this system of equation? Basically I'm going to multiply the bottom one by negative 2, and the top one I'm just going to keep it the same, so I'm just copying it, right? And then the bottom one becomes negative 4x because negative 2 times 2x is negative 4. Negative 2 times 1y is negative 2y, and negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. When I do this, I can cancel the y's. I'm left with negative x, and here I'm going to be left with negative 5. Divide both sides by negative 1, x equals 5. Now the problem asked me for the y value, so basically what I do, I just pick one of the equations, doesn't matter which one, and I plug it in the value of x. So I'm going to pick the second one, And I'm going to use the value of x, plug it in. So this would be 2 times 5 plus y equals 4. So this would be 10 plus y equals 4. If we move the 10 over the other side, move it up here, y equals 4 minus 10, which this equals negative 6. And that's exactly the answer we got. Let's go ahead and do number 33. Basically it's similar to the 32, but now I have three letters, x, y, and z. So basically what I can do is, first of all, let's build a matrix, okay? Basically, just remember one thing, that, for example, we have 5x minus 2y plus z equals 0, right? And then here would be 2x minus y plus z equals negative 3. Basically, I'm just copying that. But over here, make sure you line up the x's and the y's. And if you notice, I don't have a z. Okay, so I'm going to leave it blank. And this would be 18. Just remember, this is going to be an invisible 0. Okay, so basically, when I build my my matrix, basically, I'm going to do the following. The first column is going to be for x's, so it'll be 5, 2, and 3. Second column will be for y, so it'll be negative 2, negative 1, 4. And the last column is going to be for z, 1, 1, and a 0. And basically, this would be your x, your y, and your z. And this is going to be your answers. 0, negative 3, 18. Now you can use your calculator, and you need to remember that formula. A negative 1, B. Okay, once I have my table set up, okay, I'm ready for my calculator. So let's go ahead and move on to the calculator, and let's turn it on. Let's clear it. Let's go ahead and press second matrix. I'm going to edit. I'm going to select the first matrix by pressing 1. And this is a 3 by 3 matrix, so we're going to press 3 by 3. And we're going to enter the numbers, which is 5, negative 2, 1, and 2, negative 1, 1, and 3, 4, and 0. At this point, it's always good to check if you enter the correct matrix, and just double check real quick here, and everything looks fine. Okay, so let's press second quit. Now I want to enter the second matrix. I'm going to press edit, and don't press enter, okay, right now. Make sure you press number 2 because you're selecting the second matrix, and it's going to be a 3 rows by 1 column. So press 3 by 1, and we're going to enter the data, which is 0, negative 3, and 18. Okay, double check you enter correctly. Good. Second quit. And now we need to enter the formula, which is second matrix, select 1 for your matrix A. Here's the button for the inverse. Okay, so it is the inverse of matrix A times matrix B. So we press second matrix, number 2, and press enter. Okay, so basically we got this answer 2, 3, 4, and this would be the answer for x, y, and z. And according to this problem here, we're looking for the x solution, and if you notice, we have the value number 2. So the answer is letter C. Let's go ahead and move to question number 34. So let me move the paper over here. Question number 34 basically is asking you how would you write this system of equations in matrix form. Basically, the first thing you need to do is move the x and the y to the left side. Okay, and so I would move the 4y there. So this would become 3x minus 4y equals 2. Alright, this one here, be careful because this is a 2y, and the 2y is going to go under the 4, And the 5x is going to move, is going to come in the front, so it'll be 5x plus 2y equals 6. So if I write this in matrix form, this would be line up to 3, the x's, so 3 and 5, line up the y's, negative 4 and 2, and then you're going to have your xy, and make sure you close it, and then your answer, which is 2, 6. So now, hopefully one of the multiple choices will match this. This is almost, but doesn't. Oh, here we go. Letter C. The letter C is the answer. Okay. Let's go ahead and proceed to problem number 35. Let's give me a second here. Alright. Here's problem 35. The perimeter of a rectangular volleyball court is 180 feet. The court's width is half its length. Which system of linear equations could be used to determine the dimensions in feet of the volleyball court? Well, if the volleyball court is a rectangle, and I'll draw this, you have a length and you have a width. Well, when he's talking about perimeter, what is the form of the perimeter? Perimeter is the sum of all sides. So perimeter equals, you would add all sides, so it would be L plus W plus L plus W. So the perimeter equals 2L plus 2W. And the problem is saying that the perimeter is 180. So the perimeter, 2L plus 2W equals 180. So I should be able to see something like that. 2L plus 2W equals 180. And I notice right now that letter G is the only one that has that. Okay? But let's continue reading. The court's width, the width is, so equals half its length. So here's the length, and it'll be half of it. So if you notice, letter G matches that description. So letter G will be the answer. Okay, number 36 says Lenny needs to solve the system of equations below. And here's x equals y minus 5, 2x plus 5 minus 5 equals 0. Which is Lenny's best first step if she wants to eliminate the variable? Okay, well, because the x is by itself, remember there's three methods of solving system of equations. One is by graphing, which obviously we don't have a graph here, right? Second method is by substitution, and usually we use substitution if there's a letter by itself. And if you notice right here, I have the x by itself. Alright, and the other method is by elimination, which was like problem number, which problem was it? I think it was 32 that we did by elimination and by matrix. So that was an elimination. But in this problem here, I know it's going to be substitution. So one of the things I'm going to do is substitute the value of x. With that in mind, let's see what the multiple choices says. Replace x with y minus 5. So replace x with y minus 5 on the second equation. That's exactly what I want to do. I'm going to substitute the x with y minus 5. So I know this is good. Just for the sake of checking, let's go ahead and check the other answers. Subtract the second equation from the first equation. I cannot subtract the first from the second from the first because the x is on one side, the y is on the other side. They would have to line up for me to do that, and that would be system of elimination. Multiply the first equation by the second. Nope, don't do that. Add 5 to both sides to each equation. That wouldn't help anything on both equations. So the best answer is letter F. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and proceed to problem number 37. Alright, problem number 37. Telly's brother built a launcher for water balloons. After taking measurements, Ted has determined that the height ht in feet reached by the water balloon is related to the time t in seconds that has passed since the balloon was launched. The function h of t equals negative 1/16 t squared plus 2t. Which interval it is a reasonable domain for this situation. Okay, so let's take a look here. Okay, so we have this function here, and well, we know that t is time, so and basically when you throw the balloon's going to go from height 0 to some height, and then it's going to come back, right? So basically your graph might look something like this, right? So t equals 0, and whatever long it takes. Okay, alright, so basically when the balloon leaves the ground, it's going to be at height 0, it's going to go up, and then it's going to come down, and it's going to hit the ground again. Okay, and that will be the end of our interval. So question is, where does it hit here? Well, when it hits here, the height is 0. So I can use this equation and basically say, when is the height 0? And guess what? We can use a calculator again. So let's go ahead and pull in a calculator. Let me put it here to the side. Move this problem a little bit to the side here so we can see both. Alright. And okay, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to clear it, and we are going to press Y, and I'm going to clear that. I'm going to enter a new equation, which is negative 1 divided by 16 x squared plus 2x, and we can plug it in these multiple choices, these numbers right here, because basically this is saying that the time is going to go from 0 to some number. And I know it's not going to go to infinity, because everything that goes up must come down. So I know letter A is not right, because otherwise you'd be having a balloon that's going to go like this forever, and that's not true. Okay, unless you're like in space. Alright, so let's take a look at these over here. So the answer would be either 16 or 32, so let's take a look here. Let's press second table. Let's clear or delete. And let's press 16. It does not give me a 0. Let's try 32. It does give me a 0, so the answer is letter D. Okay, because you're starting at 0, and it's going to go up, and then it's going to come down. And you answer this when it comes down. Okay, so your interval is going to be a 0 to 32. Alright, let's go ahead and go to problem number 38. And it says here, Mr. Green has 30 yards of fencing for a garden he is planting next to his house. As shown in the diagram, a side of his house will serve as one side of the garden, so only 3 sides will require fencing. So in other words, only this side, and this side will require fencing. This is going to be the wall, so you don't need a fence for that. Okay. To help calculate the dimensions that will allow the maximum planting area, Mr. Green forms the following function with x representing the width of the garden. What is the domain of this function? Okay, let's think here a second. Well, because he has 30 yards of fencing, okay, and x represents the width of the fence, right? Well, the fence could go from 0, right, all the way to, well, even though it's not visible, but basically you would have a width 0, so in other words, the fence would go like this. I'm sorry, the fence would go like that against the wall, like just like flat down like that. Okay, and the other option would be if the fence would go like this. I fold it in half, right? One side would be 15, one side would be 15. So my possible interval would be 0 to 15. And if you notice, this would be letter G. And if you notice, it says here is not equal to, because it's taking into account that if you build a fence like this, will you be able to have a garden at all? No. And also the same way, if you just lay the fence flat against the wall, it's not going to have a garden. That's why it doesn't have the equal, like the less or equal to. Okay? But anyway, the answer is letter G. Alright, let's look at problem number 39. Okay, problem number 39 says, a lumber yard sells square scraps of plywood with sides varying from 1 foot to 4 feet. Ed wants to use some of these pieces to build storage cubes. The relationship between the length of the side of a cube and the volume of the cube is expressed by the function f of x equals x cubed, where x is the length of a side of the cube. What is the range of these functions in cubic feet for the domain given? Okay. Well, because of your numbers for x is going to vary from 1 to 4 feet, then basically what you have to do is plug it in. What is, if I plug it in 1 here, this would be 1 cube. So it would be 1 cube, which represents f of x, which is your range, and all the way up to 4 cubed. So your range would be 1 to 4 cubed is, let's take a look here, 64. Okay, so the range would vary from 1 to 64. Alright. Okay, last one here, number 40. Okay, what are the domain and range of f of x 1/5 to the x? Well, let's go ahead and plug that in to just give it, to be able to take a look at the graph. Okay, so let's press Y, press clear. Let's go ahead and write 1.5 raised to the x. Alright, let's press graph. Okay, we start seeing the graph right there. Okay, and what are the domain and range? Okay, domain, remember, goes from left to right, and as you can see, the line is like going from basically this if we zoom it in, we're going to see that this graph is going to go like this. Let me show it right here. It gets closer and closer to 0 but never reaches, but it goes forever. Okay, so basically it will be negative infinity for your domain, and as you can see, it's going to go forever. Okay, so it'll be forever. Okay, so negative infinity to infinity, which this will be the same thing as saying all real numbers. Okay, let's look at the range. Range goes from bottom up. So if I notice, my graph starts as 0 and goes to infinity. So in other words, you can say y greater or equal to 0. Or you can say it starts at 0 and goes to infinity. Either way would be one way to say it. Alright, so let's take a look at the domain. Domain, we said, is going to be all real numbers or from negative infinity to infinity. Alright, so we see letter F is not the answer. Domain says all real numbers except 0. Well, if you notice here, I can have a 0. So that one is incorrect. In domain, all real numbers, letter J, all real numbers. Okay, for the range is 0 to infinity, here is all real numbers, and we know it's letter H. Okay, because it goes from 0 to infinity. Okay, let's do problem number 41 now. Number 41 says, Lauren sketched the graph below to assist in solving the square root inequality. Square root of 4 minus x greater or equal to x minus 2. I have this graph over here that looks like two lines. If the sketch is accurate, which interval will satisfy the inequality? Okay, one thing to help you is, let's go ahead and draw this in the calculator as two separate functions. So let's go ahead and here, come to the calculator and clear it. Let's go ahead and enter the square root of 4 minus x. Press enter. Let's go ahead and write x minus 2. Whoops, x minus 2. So remember, this is going to be my first, this is going to be my second. So let's go ahead and press graph. And that's my first line. And then this will be my second line. Okay, which matches what we have here, right? And the problem is saying, if the sketch is accurate, which interval will satisfy the inequality? Well, we want this guy to be greater or equal to x minus 2. Here's x minus 2, and here is square root of 4 minus x. And we want this guy here to be higher than x minus 2. Well, when does that happen? If you notice right here, the square root is lower than the x minus 2, right? So for this point right here and this point is lower. From this interval here, this line here is always bigger. I mean, the square root is always bigger than the x minus 2. So that means we want this interval here. Okay. Let me just use a highlighter here. So basically, right here, you can see it. My highlighter is not very good. See if you can see this one. Yeah, I guess the camera doesn't work very well with that one. Alright. So basically, from here down, and that's where the graph is higher than the x minus 2. So if you notice, this interval starts at 3 and goes to negative infinity. Okay. So do we have that in my multiple choice? Yes, we do. Negative infinity and 3. So the answer is letter C. Alright. Number 42. Let's go ahead and move to question number 42. What are the equations of the vertical asymptotes of the function? Okay. F of x, 4x squared minus 100, 2x squared plus x minus 15. Basically what this is asking is which values of x will make this function invalid. That's what a vertical asymptote is. Okay, so first thing I can do is do the factoring. Okay, so remember in class we take the first and the last and multiply, so that would be 30. And this would be 1 and 30. 2 and 15, 3 and 10, and then 5 and 6. I'm looking for something that gives me a 1, so 5 and 6 is the one I want. So I'm going to copy the first term, and I'm going to change the middle term to 5x and 6x, and copy the last term. Now I'm going to do the signs. The sign of the biggest is always the same as the middle term, which is positive. So that means 5 would have to be a negative to give me a positive 1. Now we're going to factor the first two and the last two terms. So what can I factor from the first two? Well, I can factor out an x. So that means this becomes 2x minus 5. And what can I factor from these two? I can factor out a 3. So this becomes 2x minus 5 also. So now you look at these two terms and you say, what do they have in common? They have in common 2x minus 5. And if I factor those two, x is minus 5, what I'm left with? If you notice, you're left with x plus 3. So that's what's going to be on the other parentheses. Okay. So basically, we're looking for the values that would make the denominator 0. So basically, we just need to solve for 0. If you remember, this would be x equals negative 3. And this would be 2x minus 5 equals 0. Solve for x. This would be 2x equals 5 divided by 2. So x equals 5 over 2. So the answer would be x minus 3, x 5 over 2. And as you can see, the answer would be okay. Let's do problem number 43, last problem of the packet. And he says a monthly cell phone plan charges $5 for the first 300 text messages used and 15 cents for each additional message. On this plan, what is the number of text messages that must be used in a month in order to make an average cost per message of 0.05? Okay, so let's take a look again. A monthly cell phone charges $5 for the first 300 messages, so it's going to be the cost equals $5. Okay, for the first 300 messages, plus after that it's going to be 0.15 cents per message. Okay, so I'm going to multiply 0.15 times the number of messages. Okay, so let's call the number of messages x. Okay, but you have to remember that the 15 only counts after 300 messages have been taken, so or have been used, so be minus 300. Okay, on this plan, what is the number of text messages that must be used in order to make the average cost per message 0.05? Okay, so the cost is this, and basically this is going to give us the cost per month, right? And so I want the cost per month per message to be 0.05, so that means I'm going to divide the whole thing by the number of messages, which would be x. Okay, and that will give me my average cost per message. Okay, and basically I want this cost to be 0.05. Alright, and it'll be 5 plus, let's go ahead and multiply this guy out here. It'll be 0.15x and 300, just calculator, 300 times 0.15 is 45. Don't forget the x underneath. What we're going to do with the x, we're going to move over there, so this would be 0.05x equals 5 plus 0.15x minus 45. Alright, let's go ahead and move the x to the other side, so this would be 0.05x minus 0.15x, and we can go ahead and combine these two, which becomes negative 40, and here when I do the subtraction it would be negative 0.10x equals negative 40 divided by negative 0.10. X equals, alright, let's divide that. So 40 divided by 0.10 equals 400. So how many number of calls do I need to make? 400, and the answer is 400. Okay, and this concludes then the review for the Staar test part 2. I hope these videos were able to help you better prepare for this test, and always remember to try every problem and never leave something blank. If there's a problem that gives you a hard time, go ahead and skip that problem and come back to that question later, because remember, this is a limited time test, so you want to do your best, and you don't want to spend too much time in one particular problem. Okay, as you move from one problem to the next, if you're going to come back later, try to at least to maybe cancel one of the multiple choice which you obviously think is not the answer. Okay, and that will be one strategy that you also can use for every problem. Is if you don't know the right answer, try to eliminate one that obviously is not the right answer, and then take your guess. Okay, but again, don't leave anything blank, and I wish you the best on your test. Goodbye.